Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this video. I hope everyone is doing well today. I hope everyone is having fun, and I hope the universe is treating you well. We are diving back into The World of Rabbits, the novel by Terry Miles. And without further ado, let's head on in.
Stay put. She hung up. I had no idea if she was going to get him to call, show up, or maybe reschedule. I was hungry, but I didn't want to be halfway through a plate of runny eggs when Alan Scarpio showed up, so I didn't order anything.
This particular meeting, or I tell you what, we'll just let it play out because it's kind of different.
"What's your name?" the woman asked as she slid gracefully into the booth. She was about 35, Asian, subtle highlights through shiny black wavy hair. Everything she was wearing looked expensive. I wouldn't have been surprised if she was an FBI agent or a salesperson at Tiffany & Co. She smiled slightly, and I could tell immediately that her smile didn't mean what most of us mean when we smile.
That's an interesting comparison to an employee of Tiffany's versus an FBI agent. And the anybody who is in any kind of power position, whether it be civilian, government, or whatever, when they smile, it's usually never a good thing.
The diner wasn't packed, but more than half a dozen booths were full of people. How the hell did this woman know I was the person who'd called about Scarpio? "My name is Kay," I replied. "Kay, is that short for something?" "Yes." After realizing she wasn't getting anything more, she leaned forward and crossed her hands on the table.
Yes, another sign is somebody who's used to being in control of everything.
"Where is he?" "Scarpio? Who the fuck else?" "I don't know." I wasn't sure when, but at some point during the conversation or interrogation, I'd begun tapping my fingers on the table. The third and final set from the 1991 Wimbledon final between Steffi Graf and Gabriella Sabatini. It was a classic, cementing Graf's legacy at Wimbledon. Graf was serving on my left, Sabatini on my right. Steffi was down one game in the second set.
But I've always wondered if Terry Miles is a fan of tennis or not. But this play out with the fingers, that nervous, I just wonder what that would look like to an observer, to be honest with you.
Princess Diana was in the crowd. It was a beautiful day. There was something about the way this woman looked at me, like she could see straight through my eyes and into my mind. My pulse was racing. I did my best to concentrate on taking slow, deep breaths. "You met him here last night?" "Yes. Well, we met at the arcade, then came over here for pie." She nodded, processing this information. "Is Mr. Scarpio going to be joining us?" I asked. "What happened after you had pie?" "I didn't have pie. Mr. Scarpio had pie." She just stared, waiting for me to answer her question.
That's how people in power positions, like I said, are used to being in power, used to being in control, and just simple things like pauses and stuff like that interfere with their mental status. if you're ever questioned by somebody, take these long pauses and kind of dilly-dally around or play word games. Answer the exact words they ask you in a question, not the intent of the question. Yeah, that really screws with them, throws them off track.
Salesperson at Tiffany's was definitely off the table. This woman was something else entirely. I continued to tap out the points of the Wimbledon match. Steffi Graf was serving at 5-all in the third set. Mr. Scarpio met me at the arcade across the street. We came over here for a while, and then I walked him to his car. She considered this for a second or two. Did he play any games? What do you mean? At the arcade. Did he play any of the games? Yeah. I mean, I know he played Robotron.
Yeah, that is somebody who's good at doing their job. Because just the smallest little detail may give you hints or ideas of what's going on and who's going on, or what was going through the mind of the person.
Robotron 2084? Yes. She pulled out a worn, old orange moleskin notebook and a black roller tip pen and wrote something down. I'm sorry, who are you? I asked. She looked at me like I imagined an overworked clandestine government agent might look, just as they were about to switch interrogation tactics from asking questions to beating the shit out of their subject with a phone book.
Not a phone book, a rubber hose.
I work with Mr. Scarpio. That's it? What else? She asked, ignoring my question. I'm sorry? What else happened? It felt like the temperature in the room suddenly dropped by 10 degrees, and the lights dimmed, just a little. I considered telling her about the calls Scarpio had received just before he'd abruptly ended our time together in the diner, but there was something about this woman that felt incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, I have found when you're talking to somebody that feels like that, it's always safer to go with your gut instinct, to listen to what your gut is telling you. Gut memory. For those of you who are Doom Patrol fans who watch the show, gut memory. You know if you know.
I suddenly wanted this interview to be over. I shook my head. That's it. It was at this point that something strange happened. Steffi Graf lost the 1991 Wimbledon final. This was impossible. I'd run that particular match over in my mind hundreds of times. I see every point as it happens, very clearly, without exception. Steffi Graf wins. She won. It's a fact of history. This had never happened to me before.
Or is it a fact of history?
Every match I'd ever recreated mentally had played out exactly as it happened in real life. I was never a single point off. I was shaken. My hands began to tremble. Are you okay? The woman asked. I'm fine, I lied, and did my best to compose myself. Do you think Mr. Scarpio is coming? I don't think so, but if he does, please tell him to call home immediately. And with that, she stood up and walked out of the diner. I watched her cross the street and enter the arcade.
Yes, that was a straight up power move is what that was. Just straight up power move to let Kay know who's in charge and who's running things.
I'd walk over later to see if the mysterious woman said or did anything interesting, but I had to do something first. I went back over that tennis match in my mind at high speed. Steffi Graf won, just like she was supposed to. I relaxed a little bit and ordered some food. I was starving. Hey, you're the meatball sub guy's friend. I took the last bite of my 3-cheese omelet and looked up into the familiar, wide, grayish-green eyes of the server, who had shown a great deal of patience dealing with Scarpio, yelling lines from the film Point Break, and who had seen that patience rewarded with an enormous tip.
Point Break was a decent movie. Don't think I'd go around quoting it, but, we all have I think we all have that one movie or that one TV show or that one book or whatever we quote a lot, depending on the situation we're in. I know over on the playlist that I'm doing with Kingdom of Fear, there's a lot of points in which, a lot of videos in which I'm quoting the fictional character Spider Jerusalem from Transmetropolitan. So there's that.
Guilty, I said. I have something for you, she said, then walked away from the booth toward the back of the restaurant. I had no idea what she was talking about. She returned about a minute later and handed me Alan Scarpio's phone. You left this last night, she said, then hurried off to help another patron. Either Scarpio accidentally left his phone in the booth after he'd played me the rhubarb sounds, or it had somehow slipped out of his pocket. I stared at the cute dog photo for a moment, then realized his home screen wasn't locked. If I wanted to, I could access Alan Scarpio's phone with one simple swipe. A few minutes later, I called the server over and
See, I've always wondered when I read the book, when I first read the book, how much of that, that wasn't left there, because we don't know the details of the phone call that he got when they were eating dinner the night before. And there may have been something said during the phone call that Scorpio decided it would be in his best interest to leave his phone there intentionally in case something did happen to him. And it's, or was it a simple mistake? And that's just one of those things that kind of bothered me when I read the book. But when you get it, when you have a voice, when you put a voice to it, it makes it even that much more questionable what the motives were.
Explained that the phone belonged to my friend, and I would do my best to let him know it was here. She told me she'd put it in the back office for safekeeping. Once again, I called the number that Alan Scarpio had given me, but this time there was no answer, and no voicemail option. I waited until I saw the mystery woman leave the arcade, and then ran across the street to ask Chloe if the woman had mentioned anything about Alan Scarpio. Chloe and I had almost gotten together once, or at least that's the way I choose to remember it. It was a week or two after we'd met. Both of us were single at the time. A mutual friend had an art opening, and Chloe and I were there.
Yeah, this whole Chloe K thing gets really intense, especially when we get closer to the end of the book.
Along with a handful of other people we knew from the arcade. I had no idea how she felt about me, but I'd been attracted to Chloe from the moment we met. She was smart and funny, and into a lot of the same terminally uncool shit I was. And even though she might come across as somebody who doesn't give a fuck, I could tell that she did. She gave all the fucks. She was deeply engaged and cared about a lot of things. You just needed to take the time to get to know her.
And that's a lot with people. There are people that know me really good, that know my personality, and know what is a front and what is real. The facade, we all wear a facade. It's just it's a barrier we put between us and the world, and we only let certain people through that facade, and I kind of like the way it's kind of described, the way Kay describes Chloe's, getting past Chloe's facade.
Chloe referred to herself as a recovering musician. She'd lived a completely different life from the ages of 16 to 19 as the singer and principal songwriter in a semi-popular indie rock band. Like Pavement with Cut Your Hair or Radiohead with Creep, Chloe's band, Peagles, had a hit single that overshadowed a critically acclaimed full-length album. That song was called MPDG, Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Which is interesting because if you Zooey Deschanel is like the poster girl for that particular trope. So yeah, that's just want to throw that out there because it popped into my brain when they brought it out.
Chloe smashes the absolute shit out of a ukulele in the video. It's really cool. Although Peagles released only one album and an EP before they broke up, MPDG was a big hit, and that song's ubiquity in movies and television shows meant that, unless she really wanted to, Chloe didn't need to work for the next couple of decades.
That would be a nice position to be in your youth. So yeah, it's unfortunately, it's like the old proverb says that youth is wasted on the young. So yeah, almost dropped the drumstick there.
After the gallery show, a couple of our friends suggested we head back to my place for a drink. My apartment was not only large and roommate-free, it was also right around the corner, and I always had booze.
And yeah, and when you're that young, I know because I was that young once. Booze, somebody having booze all the time is a good thing.
There were 6 of us there, but I spent most of the night talking to Chloe and her friend Amanda. It was a great conversation. We talked about games, movies, comics, television, and whatever else popped into our heads. By the time I finally glanced over at the clock, it was 1 a.m, and everybody else had gone home.
And we'll go ahead and call this video good here. And until next time, have fun, enjoy life, and as always, be a good human, be good to other humans. Peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?